Have a go at this 9-ball right away.
And got it. Fantastic shot by Dennis Orcollo.
Orcollo, 33, doesn't look like anything special. He's 5 foot 5 inches and would weigh less than his 150 pounds if not for the small belly punctuating his thin frame. You would not pick Orcollo out of the crowds of Filipinos in the pool halls that are as characteristic of this country as the jeepneys that ferry passengers through the crowded streets. His appearance is well suited to a game in which the goal is not to win a few racks, but to be underestimated, and thus take the money your overconfident opponent has wagered on the match. He has won so many money matches over the years that he's forced into long stretches of solitude, like this one at Star Billiards Center where he's practicing. No one underestimates him or plays him for money anymore, not on equal terms, not without asking him to spot several games or a few balls carrying weight, as it's called. The skill that lifted Orcollo from poverty to upper middle class is decreasingly applicable these days. Orcollo attempts several more shots, the balls still refusing to drop. He isn't missing because he's lost his touch, but rather for a reason that's nearly as unsettling. He needs a new cue stick. His favorite, a $2,500 Southwest weighing 19.5 ounces, which he used to win last year's Player of the Year award from the World Pool Billiard Association, warped in Manila's moist climate, and Orcollo sold it recently at a tournament in Kentucky. Now he's searching for one he can believe in. The cue stick is the pool player's single article of equipment, the material link between him and the cue ball on the table. In a tight money game, in the final rounds of a tournament, when simple shots become difficult and the pool hall's heightened tension can feel stifling as humidity, belief in the cue stick calms a nervous heart.
Here it is. Pool claps. Pool claps. So let's see, what does he practice here? What shot?
If you don't have a good cue, Orcollo says in his accented English, you can make a mistake. It doesn't often happen that a top player abruptly loses a cue stick that has been kind to him. These searches last as long as it takes, making for a distressing period of uncertainty that has reduced great players to the crowded grouping of the simply good. It's unfortunate for Orcollo that faith cannot be expedited. In 1 week, he travels to the United Arab Emirates, where he'll defend his World 8-Ball Championship.
Straight in on 10. No. Oh, yeah, baby.
Wow. He slowed rolled that one a little bit too much there. That ball just...
Such tournaments now hold his only prospect for making a living. He must plan ahead and manage his money closely these days, much like he manages the scatter of balls on the table. Orcollo can't afford to miscalculate, for his wife and 2 small kids depend on his ability to make prize money last through the dry periods engendered by his success. Orcollo lives a tiresome paradox.
The 2015 U.S. Open 8-Ball Championship. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody.
He steps away from the table, unscrews the cue. The fans press forward. Orcollo is a 2-time Filipino Athlete of the Year. He's often on TV, and he signs autographs and smiles for cameras wherever he goes. But a pool player isn't supposed to smile at the table, particularly when he can't find a cue. There were 1,000 pool halls in New York City around 1900, about 4 times the number of Starbucks today. When the Philippines became an overseas U.S. possession in 1898, the country became one of the first recipients of American cultural export. The tables had turned so dramatically that by the 1980s, Reyes brought his game to the U.S. and hustled $80,000 in a week, according to popular legend.
そうですね、ブレイクもプレーも同じ気でやってるね。
Word of his escapades filtered home, and Reyes, already considered a top-tier pool player, became a folk hero. At the time, the Philippines was not known for much in the world, and it was this environment into which Dennis Orcollo was born. Orcollo's father was a fisherman in the southern village of Mangagoy, but a typhoon claimed his life when the boy was just 5 years old. At 9, Orcollo dropped out of school to run racks on his grandfather's pool table, routinely beating grown men for 20 pesos a game.
Good position is one of his strong points, but I'm noticing those cut shots that he can play. They make a huge difference because you can look back.
He was a pure shooter, cleanly sinking shots that others usually missed. At 15, Orcollo left Mangagoy despite pleas from his mother and grandfather, who wished he'd stay and become a fisherman, to see how far this skill could take him. The first step on his journey was a frontier gold town called Mount Tiwawal. It was a mean place. Men stole from one another and gunned one another down in the streets for the smallest of nuggets. There, he heard the tales of Reyes' success abroad. His success reinforced Orcollo's dreams, so he left Mount Tiwawal. For the next 2 years, Orcollo bounced around, playing pool in the pockmarked and backroom pool halls scattered across the country like a solid 9-ball break. He often ate once a day, usually a handful of rice or a thin soup made from chicken bones scrounged from cafe trash bins. Bedding down in rusted auto frames abandoned on the side of the road, Orcollo would dream of Reyes, the type of dramatic figure encountered only in fantasies. In the pool halls, Orcollo heard stories about Manila, about the big money in a place called Sunrise Billiards, about the action that paused only when it came time to spot the rack for a new set. Orcollo hopped a ferry, slept standing up for several days, crammed like a fish in the hold with 1,000 other souls transiting between stages of desperation. He was 19 when he landed in Manila with 300 pesos, about $7 in his pocket, and he walked straight to Sunrise Billiards. Sunrise felt like home. In fact, it was home. It was open 24 hours a day, so Orcollo could sleep in a chair, then wake up and practice his game. He didn't say a word to the seasoned regulars. He took it all in and tried to stay awake long enough so they wouldn't see him slink off to a corner back to his chair. Then, one day, Orcollo opened his eyes and pulled himself up in the chair, and there stood Efren Reyes. From that moment on, Orcollo kept track of Reyes, following him through Manila's pool halls, through the action, trying to understand what made Reyes better than those he beat with machine-like regularity. I was a good shooter, Orcollo says, but I didn't know how to control the cue ball. I watched how Efren controlled that ball. It was like chess. While Orcollo was learning technique on the table, he also began to employ the tricks of the hustle. Orcollo was no longer the fast and free kid from Mount Tiwawal. He would sink shots, but ultimately snooker himself. He was becoming a complete player. His competitors took note of his unemotional, even-keeled demeanor. If they watched his face and not the balls on the table, they couldn't tell whether he'd made a shot or missed it. Whispers spread at Sunrise Billiards that with the right kind of weight, a backer could make money off this kid. Soon enough, one did. A backer named Stanley arranged Orcollo's first real money match against Antonio Leining, a lefty who'd made a name for himself on the international circuit. Orcollo won the 5,000 peso match, causing the action to swirl around him. Soon, Stanley was arranging money games 5 times a day, allowing Orcollo to leave the college kids behind. He went on a winning streak that lasted a month. At the end of it, his cut of 20,000 pesos was enough to rent a small room.
To subscribe to the channel, and just stay tuned for more. But you will notice these guys, all of them. I'm not just talking.
He books a few games, small money games, 5,000 pesos, $100 here, $100 there. The action is light, but it is action. He wins, pockets some money using one cue, then another. Then one night in March, Orcollo finds himself at Hermes Bar, finishing up the last rack of another small money game. Perry Mariano watches from his stool. He's getting another massage. The last ball drops, and Orcollo readies to go home, unscrewing his cue.